girlies, there is a time and place where we must gatekeep and girl boss. Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today, in lieu of the release of It Ends With Us, the movie and the shit show that is that press tour, I am talking about Colleen Hoover's Controversies. I just want to get right into it, but before I do, in presenting this video topic to multiple people in my life, I have been met with many warnings about the Colleen Hoover fanbase and what they have the potential to do to my mental health. So I just want to preface this whole video by saying, let's all be chill, okay? I am presenting information I've researched and consolidated and sharing what I think about that information. If you enjoy her books, listen, it's your life, okay? You're allowed to enjoy the things that you enjoy, just as I am allowed to critique the things that I don't enjoy. This is not serious enough for you to soil your digital footprint by calling me a racial slur because, oh yeah, that's happened. Some of y'all out there are nasty. I promise you that Colleen Hoover is going to be okay. She has the ability to retire like yesterday. This has absolutely nothing to do with the genre of her books or the fact that it's popular among women. On that note, who is Colleen Hoover? She is a 44-year-old author married with 3 kids from and living in Texas, and I learned literally yesterday that some people call her Coho, like J-Lo. She went to college and studied social work, and then post-graduation she took up various teaching and social work jobs before becoming an author. She said she always wanted to be a writer, but it wasn't until 2011 that she wrote her first book, Slammed, which was self-published in 2012, and then the sequel was published just a month later. Now, we all know that she really skyrocketed to fame in the last 4 to 5 years, but at least at this time she was somewhat known on YouTube and Instagram. And when her first 2 books were covered by book bloggers, her sales grew rapidly. In the same year, both these books ended up on the New York Times bestsellers list for self-published books, and then by the end of the year, Atria Publishing Group picked up the books and republished them. And it was at this point that she quit her day job and she became a full-time author. Now, she went on to write many books before publishing It Ends With Us in 2016, and by 2019 there were over 1 million copies of this book sold, and it was translated into over 20 different languages. However, in 2021, Book Talk, a new thriving social media community at the time, caught wind of this book. And while Colleen Hoover was already quite successful at this point, her popularity really soared by January 2022. It Ends With Us topped the New York Times bestsellers list, and it has remained her most popular and widely discussed novel to date. And as of today, there is a movie adaptation of the book that's out, and Colleen Hoover's net worth is estimated at about $12 million. That's like a higher net worth than Sophie Turner. Evidently, all things considered, people love her books. Like, if you go online, you'll see people excitedly reviewing them, making aesthetics out of them, etc. And I get why. On paper, her books are romance books with smut and tension and traumatic backstories and drama and twists. However, there's a large amount of people who do not fuck with her books. I've seen her books described online as trashy literary gateway to bad smut, lobotomy literature, which is brutal. I've also seen her writing described as fanfiction for people who weren't on AO3, Wattpad, or Tumblr 10 years ago, and I have to say, I feel personally insulted by that because back in my day, I came across some good fanfiction. So I first want to cover the controversies surrounding her writing, and there are multiple points to what's so controversial about that. And the first thing I want to briefly mention, which is the most unserious point of contention for people, is the way she names her characters. Like, for example, in It Ends With Us, the main character's name is Lily Lily Blossom Bloom, and she owns a floral shop. Also, just other unconventional names that people have qualms about from her other books, like Kale and Merritt and Chasten. Another point of contention is that there's a lot of weird shit in her books. Like, a lot. And by the way, if you are my employer or anyone who works with me IRL, I am begging you to click off before I say this next part. In her book Ugly Love, which apparently has incest, by the way, the main guy, Miles, and his ex, I think, were laughing about their infant son's big balls in the car. And what's more insane is that causes them to get into a car accident which kills their baby. Their baby died because they were laughing at his balls. Wow, that is a sentence. Also, in It Ends With This, Lily gets turned on by Atlas smearing cow shit on her. Not even kidding. And it reminds me of that one Addison Rae movie where they're smearing horse shit on each other. I'm not saying the screenwriter for He's All That is a fan of Colleen Hoover, But that's exactly what I'm saying. A more serious criticism that people have of Colleen Hoover's books, though, is the lack of diversity in them. Like, we really don't see any queer people, people of color, etc. And I will say it is not necessarily a requirement for authors to tick off these boxes, especially if it's for the sake of ticking them off. There's apparently one gay side character in It Ends With Us, but it's apparently a very shallow, tokenizing, and stereotypical representation of a gay man, and he's only there to advance the arc of the main characters. So that's just a prime example of how just plopping a token diversity character into a story isn't gonna make it better. However, I do think it is a valid question to ask why, after 24 published books, does Colleen Hoover not include any diversity whatsoever? I think it's very much a valid criticism and valid question that should make Colleen Hoover think inward on why that is. And the last most widely discussed point of criticism for Colleen Hoover's writing is the way she romanticizes abuse. Now, I'll be talking more about It Ends With Us since that content is more about intimate partner violence, so content warning for that because I'm about to go into it. I have to note, I did not read the book. I haven't read any of her books. I thought of reading the book for this video, but then I decided I'd rather perish on live TV than do that. However, I am oh so familiar with what happens in the book, so here we are. If you did not know, the inspiration for It Ends With Us came from Colleen Hoover's parents' relationship and the unsafe upbringing she had because of that. She wanted to write a book tributing her mother's hardships and resilience and wanted to write something that would help other people going through the same thing. The book is about Lily and Ryle, a couple who live in Boston. Lily is a florist, Ryle is a neurosurgeon. Both of them had very traumatizing childhoods. Lily had an abusive father who she witnessed abuse her mother, and Ryle, when he was like 6 years old, accidentally shot and killed his brother, even though it's not his fault he had access to that gun. Lily also has her first love, Atlas, who is the secondary love interest in this book. And as the story progresses, Lily starts to notice more of Ryle's controlling and abusive behavior. And what I've seen people give Colleen Hoover credit for is how she provides insight into a survivor's perspective on how they rationalize their abusive partner's behavior and how they end up staying and how it is not an easy situation for them to get out of. Like, Lily justifies staying because she genuinely has hope that Ryle will get better and that he's going to work on himself, and of course he doesn't. But I've also seen people discuss how It Ends With Us romanticizes the abusive relationship between Lily and Ryle because it tends to portray Ryle as more of a flawed character rather than an abuser. That Ryle's behavior is characterized as troubled and complicated, and that it's sympathetic with him because it constantly justifies his behavior with his childhood trauma. Like in their first scene, Colleen Hoover wrote the line, "There's no such thing as bad people, we're all just people who sometimes do bad things," which people have highlighted to be very ironic and confusing in messaging. Now, there's only a certain extent to which I can agree on this because I haven't read the book. I haven't interpreted the source material for myself. But what I feel like I can agree on is the fact that the ending is a bit questionable. And no, I'm not talking about Lily leaving Ryle, I'm talking about two things. Lily leaving Ryle, setting up her relationship with Atlas, and Lily letting her daughter alone with Ryle. It seems that the criticism for the setup of Lily and Atlas is that fans have sort of framed this abusive relationship between Lily and Ryle as a device for Lily to get to her true love, to the point of undermining the courage that it took for her to leave her abusive relationship. And I definitely see where that criticism is coming from, given that a lot of Colleen Hoover fans are young women and teenage girls. Like, it genuinely would not take you long to find TikToks of people talking about Ryle and Atlas like it's a Jeremiah versus Conrad, Edward versus Jacob, Damon versus Stefan, Peeta versus Gail sort of a situation, when like, oh, that's not. The other thing is, at the end of the book, Lily gives her daughter to Ryle for the day, knowing that he is abusive, but somehow convinced that he would never hurt their child. Interesting that despite him being an abusive partner and her divorcing him, that she would let him alone with their daughter, but also that Colleen Hoover would write Lily saying that she's breaking the cycle of abuse when, like, she's not. DomesticShelters.org has an article about this book where the author Jenny Young says Lily can't be given a pass for not understanding the danger of the situation. She even asks, "What kind of mother would I be if a small part of me doesn't have concern in regard to your temper?" Ultimately, she reasons that despite what has happened between us in the past, he's still the baby's father. He has the legal right to be a father no matter how I feel about it. This isn't necessarily accurate. Section 31A of the Massachusetts State Legislature notes that where physical or sexual violence has occurred between parents, any form of unsupervised visitation or custody with an abusive parent is considered contrary to the best interest of the child and generally not permitted. The fact that Lily doesn't press charges doesn't change the reality of what happened, it just means reality isn't documented. Lily ultimately decides that parents have to work through their differences and bring a level of maturity into a situation in order to do what's best for their child. But Ryle is not a guy who simply has differences with the child's mother. He's a dangerous criminal with a history of manipulating and victimizing women. Lily's decision to co-parent with Ryle is not redemptive, it is a blatant shirking of the barest parental responsibility responsibility, the responsibility to protect her daughter. Colleen Hoover has no moral or ethical obligation to write role models, and we don't need to agree with the actions of a fictional heroine. But the scope of Hoover's platform and the age of her readers renders her books fair game for honest critique, and for reasons I still don't understand, It Ends With Us keeps getting a pass. Of course, we have to consider that not every survivor of intimate partner violence wants to press charges, and even if they do, it might not end up in their favor, and deciding whether or not to do so is completely up to the individual. I think people just have qualms with the fact that this isn't presented or mentioned as an option for Lily, so people criticize the ending for that, and I completely understand. What I will say is, outside of the fans who are making Pinterest boards for this damn book, it is clear that Ryle is the villain of this book. Like, Lily leaves him at the end. It is clear what Colleen Hoover's stance is on Ryle as a love interest. But the marketing of this book is very weird. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, based on how people have talked about this book online, I didn't realize that this was a book on domestic violence. I thought it was a rom-com. It also has no content warning. I've seen it in Barnes & Noble under the hee hee haha red flag romance section. And on Colleen Hoover's website, this is part of the description of the book. Combining a captivating romance with a cast of all too human characters, It Ends With Us is an unforgettable tale of love that comes at the ultimate price. That is a weird way to describe a book about domestic violence. And to top that all off and add that maraschino cherry, a lot of people have emphasized that all of Colleen Hoover's other male protagonists are exactly like Ryle. It is only in It Ends With Us that he is presented as an abuser, though. For example, in Ugly Love, Miles is an emotionally abusive partner but still ends up with Tate. In November 9, there is apparently a scene that got cut after it got so much backlash. So yeah, that is why people think that Colleen Hoover glorifies abusive relationships. On the topic of tone deafness, another controversy Colleen Hoover had was with the It Ends With Us coloring book. So back at the end of 2022, early 2023, when it was announced that It Ends With Us would be turning into a movie, Colleen Hoover went with this momentum and announced in January 2023 that there would be a coloring book for the movie/book, and it would come out in April 2023. There would be 30 illustrations of the most iconic settings and scenes of the book, as well as quotes from the book. In the announcement that has now been deleted, Colleen said, "I'm one of the adult coloring book industry's biggest consumers, so to have one of my books turn into a coloring book is a dream come true. I am so excited for this." Releases April 4th, 2023, beautifully illustrated by Emma Taylor. And people hated this so much. She got so much backlash for making merch of a book about domestic violence, and people were saying it was really distasteful, really disrespectful, etc. Everyone said she was not taking the subject matter of the book seriously because she's trying to market it with a fun coloring book. And she got so much backlash that not even a week later, she announced that Atria Publishing Group would not be publishing this coloring book. She said, "The coloring book was developed with Lily's strength in mind, but I can absolutely see how this was tone deaf. I hear you guys, and I agree with you. No excuses. No finger pointing. I've contacted the publisher to let them know that I would prefer we don't move forward with it. Thank you for the respectful discourse and accountability. Nothing but love." A representative from Atria Books also confirmed that the publishing house would not be publishing this coloring book. They said Atria Books will not move forward with the publication of the official It Ends With Us coloring book. We developed this book to be uplifting and empowering, mirroring Lily Bloom's story. We appreciate the feedback and discourse and have the greatest respect for Colleen Hoover fans. Another Colleen Hoover controversy, although this is more so her fans, so this one is Colleen Hoover adjacent, is the takedown of Z Library. So Z Library was a popular website used by a large number of people to pirate books. A huge part of the demographic were college students trying to pirate textbooks, and also people who wanted to read but couldn't or didn't want to pay those Barnes & Noble prices. Colleen Hoover fans were talking about this website on TikTok, and one of the TikToks went absolutely viral. So a lot of people flocked to the website to read Colleen Hoover's books on Z Library. And I guess because of the incoming traffic to the website, it caught the attention of the Department of Justice, so it got taken down for copyright infringement. Girlies, there is a time and place where we must gatekeep and girl boss. No, I am not unironically blaming Colleen Hoover for all this. I just think that it's ridiculous that Z Library was as old as Poker Face by Lady Gaga and was killed by Colleen Hoover fans. Another Colleen Hoover controversy was how she handled her son having sexual harassment allegations. Now, there isn't a lot of information about this out there, so I am merely presenting what I have found. In a tweet on February 12, 2022, which has since been deleted, a Twitter user added to a thread against Colleen Hoover saying her son also sexually harassed me and she blocked me when I spoke up about it to her. In a second tweet, she said, "Long story short, we were friends on Snapchat and shit. And like every day we would message because we're friends, right? And like this was when I was 16 and he was fully aware of how old I was. I always talked about the fact that I was still in school." This person also provided screenshots of her DMs to Colleen Hoover with a red receipt. Colleen didn't seem to have replied according to the screenshot. This person said they were 16 at the time, so Colleen Hoover's son would have been 21 years old. And so this Twitter thread caught the attention of Reddit and TikTok and it started going viral. Apparently, Colleen Hoover Hoover at first denied this entirely. Allegedly, I wasn't able to find evidence of this because, again, there's not much information about this out there. But people were angry and started calling for a boycott on her books and trying to cancel her, but of course, she wasn't really canceled. And then on November 18, 2022, Colleen Hoover posted on her private Facebook group called Colleen Hoover's Cohorts. She said, "Things being said about my son aren't accurate. People are commenting that I blocked a girl for informing me that my son sexually assaulted her when she was 16. This absolutely did not happen, and this is not even initially what was said by this person. My son and a girl were online friends for several months. They never met in person. He said something to her in a message that made her uncomfortable. He asked her to send him a pic, so she messaged me about it. I did not read this message, but she thought I did, and it understandably upset her that I didn't respond. She then posted on Twitter that my son asked her for a pic. As soon as I found out about this months ago, I reached out to her. We discussed what happened. I apologized to her and thanked her for bringing this to my attention, and I offered to send her our home address and lawyer info should she want it. I held my son accountable for sending a message to her that was inappropriate. I addressed it directly with her and with my son. I didn't address it publicly because 1, I feel it's not my place to talk about someone else's experience, and 2, everyone who knows me here has seen me parent these boys and hold them accountable. I'm sad this happened. You guys know I've tried my best to raise my children with respect and to show respect." And then, everything subsided. The person who made that tweet originally had deleted those tweets and also hasn't said anything since. I hope they're okay and they're happy with how the situation turned out. Exact details of the situation are still sort of debated. How Colleen Hoover handled this and whether or not she was being honest is also debated. There isn't really a lot of information on this. Let me know what you think about how she handled this, because either way, this was really not good for her. And the last controversy I want to talk about, the celebrity drama that people have been fiending for and comparing to the Don't Worry Darling press drama, is the It Ends With Us movie press drama. Good lord. The framing of this drama seems to be more of a Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni sort of situation. However, it is clear that Blake and Colleen are friends, or at least closer, and the two of them have been majorly linked in this whole situation, and people do have qualms with how Colleen Hoover has fit into this entire situation. So there are a lot of moving parts to this shit show of a press tour. So basically, there's Colleen Hoover, the author, there is Blake Lively, the producer of the movie. She also stars as Lily, and we know her as Serena from Gossip Girl. And then there's Justin Baldoni. We know him as Raphael from Jane the Virgin. He is a director, and he also plays Ryle. And this drama basically started when the general public started to notice that Justin Baldoni has been singled out on the press tour of this movie. It has basically been Blake Lively, Colleen Hoover, and co on one press tour, and then Justin Baldoni on another. And at first it seems like this could have an innocent explanation, like maybe there was a schedule conflict, or Justin had personal reasons for not joining everyone else. But then people start to notice that the cast isn't following Justin, but Justin's following everyone, including Blake. And also Justin is praising Blake in his interviews, and yet Blake is avoiding talking about him like the plague. Like, an interviewer will literally ask her a question about working with Justin, and she won't even pretend. Like, not even a politician's answer. She just straight up won't answer the question. Every time I see an interview clip, I'm like, maybe the real answer to the question was the friends we made along the way.
Blake, talk to me about building trust with Justin, which I imagine would be crucial when filming some of those more difficult personal scenes.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was such a challenge because, you have scenes that are, deeply painful and traumatic and physical, but you also have scenes that are full of levity and light and romance. And normally when I see this type of character like Ryle on screen, you know what's gonna happen and you're like, that guy's full of red flags. But like, the way that Colleen wrote Ryle, I think is just so, I think that's why the story resonates with so many, is you get why Lily stays. You get why Lily chooses to believe a different reality, because you're watching her in real time. You too are going like, I know what I just saw, but I don't want to. Like, maybe I didn't just see that. That is the magic of this film, is how she made these characters so winning.
Just tell me what it was like also collaborating with Blake.
Oh, she's a creative force. She's a genius. She was involved in every aspect of this production, and everything she touched, she made better.
So that's why the internet is like, all right, there's definitely beef there. But there are two reasons why people are mostly on Justin Baldoni's side. One, there's a lot of speculation that Blake was trying to take a lot of creative control during the filming of the movie, that she basically bulldozed Justin, she brought in her husband Ryan Reynolds to make creative decisions and write scenes, and that she basically got told no too many times, and that caused tensions. The second reason is that the two of them are promoting the movie in a entirely different ways. Blake and Colleen have basically been promoting this movie like it's a fun movie about women's empowerment and following your dreams, and Justin Baldoni has been the only one in the entire cast being like, this is about a very serious topic. We need to talk about domestic violence. I want to bring awareness to this important topic.
I love that she was, masculine and feminine. I love that she liked old things and then new shiny things, that she was very utility and practical, but sort of over the top and glamorous in other moments.
Also very strong, yet also very vulnerable at the same time.
Yeah, she was just all
Throughout
of these
her
different
life.
things at once. And when I've been fortunate to play a woman who has a very emotional journey that has a lot of weight to it, you know, where you go through trauma, you go through pain, and you come out of it. It's normally, the movie's just that. You don't also get the levity and the light and the humor. And if you get the levity and the light and the humor and the joy, you don't also get to have those emotional highs and lows. So I think that's why people love seeing this movie so much.
This story is one that covers it covers domestic abuse, domestic violence, but it also covers somebody having a lifelong dream and realizing it and making it a reality. It covers your first love. It covers a new love. It covers the highs and lows and every color of the human experience. So for me, it felt very clear what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, because it captured the messiness of the human experience, and it felt very honest and very real and very raw.
One of the things that I think is very easy to say, especially for us men, is when we maybe talk to somebody who's in this situation, or we read a book, or we hear a news story, the question that's always asked is, why did she stay? And that's the wrong question.
Yeah.
What we need to be asking ourselves is, why do men harm?
Yes.
And that was the big thing for me. And what I've learned more and more and more of is, like, these women who experience this every single day, there's real love there. There's charm, there's charisma, there's passion, there's this belief that they can be better. And it's not so simple. So our friends at No More, I'm wearing their pin right now, they were the ones who really worked with me to help me make this film as truthful as possible.
So yeah, people are like, Blake, Colleen, girlies, why aren't you promoting this movie for what it is? Why aren't you being honest about what this movie is about? Like, I kid you not, I had to tell someone in real life that this movie is not a rom-com. Like, I think Blake Lively literally said, go grab your girls and grab your florals and go have fun. This movie is about the full spectrum of the female experience. And she's also been using the movie to promote her hair care brand and vice versa, which doesn't look good. After this completely blew up, there was a headline a few days ago actually saying that Justin Baldoni was the problem on set and that he made Blake uncomfortable. And people have had mixed responses to this, from people being like, okay, maybe we should take a step back, to people being like, this is clearly a PR move on Blake and Ryan's part. There have been a lot of people who have worked with Justin Baldoni coming forward and saying that he's the nicest person in the world and that doesn't sound like him at all. I saw a TikTok of someone saying that they're the editor of the movie and that they are fighting over creative control of the movie and that they side with Justin. There is also further speculation that Ryan Reynolds got way too involved with this movie and that's what caused the tensions. There's just so much going on day by day about this drama. And Blake said in an Instagram comment that there's no beef, but she also didn't mention Justin. Like, I believe the comment was, there's no beef, I had fun making this movie, which you can decide whether or not you believe, but I think it's still interesting that she's clearly still avoiding talking about Justin. Because, if it were actually true, I think I would have been like, we had fun making this movie, Justin and I had fun making this movie, there's no beef. Colleen Hoover is of course wrapped up in all this because A, she is the author, but also B, she has been on this press tour with Blake, not really promoting the movie for being about domestic violence. And she's gotten so much backlash that I believe her TikTok is now privated, and as of this morning, Blake Lively has now finally posted an Instagram story about domestic violence. So the PR is PRing. About the Justin Baldoni versus Blake Lively thing specifically, I don't know what is real. I just checked my phone and apparently Justin Baldoni has hired a crisis PR team, like top-notch crisis PR team. Updates are happening as we speak. I don't want to choose a team and then for that team to be wrong. I just think we don't know these people, so honestly, there is criticism warranted here in terms of how Blake Lively and Colleen Hoover have been promoting this movie. However, I do implore all of you to think about the dogpiling on Blake Lively currently happening on the internet, because I don't want us all to go from the territory of criticism to the territory of hate and misogyny. So just Think about that. I think that their personal beef aside, Colleen Hoover and Blake Lively were not doing their due diligence promoting this movie. Like, they really should have done better. Sure, this movie industry is a business. Maybe it wouldn't have done as well at the box office if you didn't promote it with Deadpool, or if you did mention domestic violence in the press tour. However, if people question your artistic integrity for it, don't be surprised. Final thoughts. I wish I had a single thought. I don't. Head empty. I don't think I'm gonna watch this movie. I'm not gonna read the book. I'm good. But, you know, live your life. Don't let me yuck your yum. If you want to go for it, go for it. Just be warned about the content. Keep in mind the criticisms discussed today, especially if you are a really young person out there watching. I've added some resources pertaining to domestic violence in the description of this video if you or someone you know needs it. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you didn't, sorry. I hope you learned something. Let me know what you think in the comments about any of these controversies. I especially want to know what you think about Colleen Hoover's writing. I'd love to hear new perspectives on that. So yeah, comment below and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already.